This is from Kron 4. U.S. Capitol police officer dies after violent protests bringing death toll to 5. They say a U.S. Capitol police officer has died from injuries sustained during violent riots at the Capitol on Wednesday. A source tells Kron's 4, Alexandra Limon, that the police officer was hit in the head with a fire extinguisher by a rioter and was taken off life support. The police officer is now the 5th person to die as a result of the violent protests. The other 4 who have died are identified as Roseanne Boyland. Now, my understanding is she fell and they believe she was trampled. Kevin Greason and Benjamin Phillips. I'm not entirely sure which one, but one of them suffered a heart attack. One of them suffered a stroke. And Ashley Babbitt, of course, she was the woman who had climbed up in the window and peeked through, and the officer shot her, killing her. Now, look, apparently a couple people had heart attack and one guy had a heart attack, one guy had a stroke. They're trying to lump that in to make that seem like that's part of the actual riotous death count, and I think that might be a little disingenuous. Although I guess if you suffer a medical emergency because you're older and you're in the heat of the moment, blood flow and all that stuff, you're going crazy and your heart's pounding, I guess it makes sense. But it wasn't like those people died because of external forces. It was just their bodies giving out. As for Ashley Babbitt, she got killed, and what was she really doing but just climbing up and looking through a window? I mean, come on. It's not like I'm going to sit here and say that these people should have been in the building. Of course not. But I tell you, man, I have seen these circumstances. A bunch of people run into the building. You see people who don't know what's going on, who walk up and they're just bumbling around, confused. I've talked about it over and over again. That what happens is someone runs up to a door and hits the glass, runs away. Someone else runs up and sees the glass falling and knocks out some pieces, runs away. It's all these little grains of sand that eventually the doors open and mindless people are just like walking up and seeing the door open and walking and going like, wow, what's going on? And then you end up with this woman. Now, she's got social media videos. Ashley, she was very adamant. She was very angry, a staunch Trump supporter. But this shouldn't have happened. I mean, even if, people were storming the Capitol, it's absurd, in my opinion. Now, I got to be honest. I get it. You storm the Capitol, you got itchy trigger fingers from Capitol security, and it's their job to barricade the doors and protect the people inside. And it's just completely tragic. Now, I'll tell you, I'm also mad about this cop losing his life. Because this is look. I say this about the left all the time. They think the cops know what they're talking about. You see a cop and they're like, he should know what I know. And so they scream, traitor, whose side are you on? And that cop doesn't necessarily know what you know. Now, I think it's fair to say a lot of Trump supporters, a lot of conservatives probably assume the cops know a bit because they're cops and they deal with this stuff all year. But I'm not going to pretend that, when you see cops going around and destroying small businesses throughout the lockdown, just like blocking doors. Yeah, that we see in New York and stuff violates the First Amendment when they're secretly filming, Jewish schools. That is creepy, and it also violates the right to worship and assemble when they're shutting down churches. These were cops who were providing basic security to our government, who were standing around saying, we want to make sure everybody inside can do their job. Somebody bashed this guy over the head with a fire extinguisher. Why? Why kill the guy? Why would you do that? Oh, man, it's infuriating.
Yep. Many news organizations and even some individuals are talking about thoughts and prayers for the traumatized Congress members. People forget that people died here. This is a very serious incident. Specifically talking about that woman, there's a lot of videos. We still don't know the full details. We hope there's an investigation, but it doesn't look justified. And right now we're getting the information that the chief of the U.S. Capitol Police is saying that the police officer involved in that fatal shooting has been placed on administrative leave and their police powers have been suspended pending investigation. Another thing that really needs to be pointed out.
Scared cop with a gun, man.
Yes, but then also he was behind a door. There's a lot of different elements that we could break down here. But another important one is that there was police officers with full-on long rifles
tactical
behind her.
Yeah, that was insane.
The police officer could have killed other police officers. Yeah. And there was no threat to anyone's life. And again, I don't want to be jumping to conclusions because I do hope there's an investigation. We do need to wait for cooler heads to prevail before making any kind of assumptions and judgments here. But just looking at that video footage, we should really prioritize the truth about that event rather than, in my opinion, you can't even compare the two. The nonsense, the hysteria, the just hyperbolic bullcrap on mainstream media right now.
Oh, I mean, CNN's ratings are through the roof, so of course they're going after Trump hard.
Yeah.
But look, we got more news here pertaining to the police. U.S. Capitol Police Chief to resign after Wednesday's riots. I mean, so there you go. That's the news. It's Stephen Sund is resigning amid criticism over an apparent lack of preparedness to deal with Wednesday's violent mob on Capitol Hill. You know, I was on Twitter and I was about to tweet something like, why weren't the police ready for this? And then I stopped and thought about what I had just said when I made a segment on YouTube and said, I don't think Trump supporters will do anything. I think they're going to support Trump, they're going to rally, they're going to wave American flags, and they're going to march around. I didn't think there were going to be people who actually, storm the barricades. Now, there's a couple of videos. One of them shows the cops retreating as the group pushes through, but there's a bunch of different areas. There's also an overhead view of all of the barricades and a massive crowd shaking the barricades, knocking them down, and then rushing the stairs up to the building. So, I mean, look.
That might have been my video because I was up in that.
Were you filming down?
I was up in the media tower.
Well, so let's
just set up for inauguration.
Let's do this. Let me get your thoughts on this officer and these people lost their life, and then we'll go into your story about everything that went down. So, just like, I don't know, tell me what you think about what the violence and all that stuff.
So, I mean, first off, I arrived basically when they had already amassed around the Capitol and the police had set up their line. So right when I arrived, the first thing I noticed was not only were the police using mace and bear spray, but they also were the protesters were using it as well on the police. And the police were less adequately equipped than I was as a reporter. I had a tactical helmet and a gas mask, and because I had seen the reports and I rushed down there. And
you turn the mic a little bit.
Sorry. And so when I got there, I was extremely surprised to see how unprepared the police were. Usually in these kind of situations, where things are escalating, you see riot police pour out. But the people who had formed the lines, they were all just basically, your standard Capitol police. Maybe they had a shield over their face if they were lucky, but no gas masks.
But these people who were in the front and, spraying the cops and stuff, who were they? Were they Trump supporters? Because we're hearing a lot of people are trying to claim, especially conservatives, that it was actually Antifa. But I've seen one video where there's a guy who does not look like a Trump supporter, but he's got a Trump sticker on his helmet, bashing a window, just like Antifa does, and people are screaming, stop him. And then a Trump supporter grabs him and puts him in a neck hold and pulls him down.
Yeah, that's also extremely underreported.
Yeah.
What you just brought up is an
exactly.
important facet, that there were elements from videos that I've seen of people saying, stop this. So
yes,
I'm curious,
I saw
I'm curious from you guys, because there's two kind of theories out there. One is that there was inadequate security and that the police officers let them in. Another one was that they were just not ready and they were overtaken. There's these two theories. What do you guys think from your personal opinions? What actually happened yesterday?
It's kind of a mix with both. They were for sure not prepared, undermanned. I kind of went into it the same sentiment of Tim. Actually, even reporting on the ground was, I didn't think anything crazy was. I actually was anticipating more Black Lives Matter activists maybe making their way down, and then just because that's what we've seen in the past. But from what I saw is they were for sure unprepared. But to me, I didn't see anything that like jumped out and said, these were Antifa. Like I just, I know that's not popular to say right now.
You see that video where they're yelling, no Antifa, no, stop him.
But then again, like when there were these claims over the summer that, right wingers were infiltrating Antifa and BLM protests, what were they? Did Umbrella Man wear a MAGA hat when he did the crime?
Yeah,
no.
he was Antifa.
So Antifa's not going to dress up as Antifa. If they're trying to,
well, these,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, but so some of these people,
it's impossible to tell really.
Right.
Just because they have a red hat on doesn't really.
Well, no,
mean
these guys
anything.
didn't. They had like a brown helmet and then just like black block gear with a Trump sticker on it, and I'm like, that looks
saw
like
that
the
photo.
dude geared up, and then slapped a sticker on his helmet to make it seem like he was a Trump supporter.
Now this is interesting because we've seen the media during the summer trying to obfuscate some of the kind of left-wing protest as undercover right-wingers.
Yeah.
There was government officials, mainstream media, politicians saying, no, these aren't left-wing Antifa. These are right-wingers trying to incite us to make us look bad. Now we're seeing a kind of similar kind of attempt here. Do you think it's legitimate, or because other people are also adding that there wasn't any kind of counter-protest when there usually is? That's what people are saying. I don't want to jump to conclusions. I just want to kind of hear your opinions on this.
I think from my perspective is emotions are super high right now. Even from a reporter perspective, like even right after the election, if you just told the truth about the election, people are unfollowing you and canceling you if you don't tell them what they want to hear. If you don't say Trump's going to be in office after January 20th, you're done. So I was already seeing that. And then this, I think, is just adds on top of it. Like I said, I don't know what's going on, but it just seems like no one wants to take responsibility. It seems like Antifa is just the easy scapegoat. Like just anything. Hey, Antifa. Look, even before everything broke down, when I was doing interviews, I was asking folks, do you think this is kind of a civil war that we're headed? Because whether you agree with the Stop the Rally march in D.C., that moment is historic because we've never seen anything like that after a presidential election. So we're already walking on, uncharted waters. So with this situation, to me, like I said, I was asking folks, do you think we're headed to a civil war? I was 9 times out of 10. They're saying this is a civil war. To us, this is a revolution.
Not to mention like all the crowbars.
Yeah, like people were telling me
that implies premeditation. What is a crowbar used for? Yeah. Like what? For holding up a sign? No, absolutely not.
For breaking the doors open.
Correct.
People had crowbars?
Oh, I saw probably 5 or 6 crowbars. A lot of them actually were just left by the doors where the glass had been shattered.
What?
Yeah.
Like
So weird.
I got knocked down by one of the doors, and I actually was looking for my phone, and I found a crowbar.
That's so weird, man. I don't know. I mean,
I just think everyone's emotional right now, and I think I don't know. It's just we never
breaking in. I guess maybe in the 1700s, taking the state building may have granted you some kind of power. I don't know how that works. I guess you're like, I'm in the building, it's mine now. Especially not today. They can issue a statement from wherever they want. Any one of these politicians going in the building didn't do anything. I mean, we've got videos of. I tweeted this out. The Women's March took over the Senate building, and then they shut the whole building down. And they weren't worried about the fact that there was like 1,000+ people screaming at the top of their lungs inside the.
Oh, was that in Hart?
Was
the
that
Hart Senate office building?
Yeah,
that big the
atrium.
Yeah, atrium. Exactly. That's Hart. Yeah.
So I understand it's a fairly different circumstance that storming through the barricades and fighting with cops and pepper spraying them and smashing windows and breaking in is very different. Plus, it was during the electoral vote count. So I wonder what the goal is for either group. Like the Women's March didn't accomplish anything. What did they accomplish really yesterday other than some people have lost their lives?
To me, it's just, you don't accomplish anything, and it just seems like Trump just lost a whole bunch of support. We've seen now the senators kind of rescind their objections.
Not all of them, though.
And now this also gives big tech the biggest excuse in the world, as we already seen, to just censor Trump. I mean, it just seems like after the election, Trump is going to disappear on social media. I don't know.
Oh, he's already basically banned.
He's definitely banned from Facebook now, according to Mark Zuckerberg's own personal post. The New York Times yesterday had 2 articles talking about the importance of limiting speech. And we are seeing people left, right, and center just being taken down for the minuscule posts and even memes. There's a meme of that guy who's wearing the kind of weird headgear and the face paint, and it says, 2021, I thought it wasn't going to be crazy. And Facebook is banning people's account for that post. And it's not even a political post. It's not even taking side. It's a joke. It's a meme. It's people saying this year's pretty crazy, banned by Facebook. And they just released these vague terms saying if you are supportive of this in any way, you get cut. Michelle Obama just released a statement talking about how, it's dangerous to have social media. But there's a big argument I want to make here. And I really want to kind of talk about the dangers of censorship, especially when it comes to QAnon. Because when we look at QAnon, this was a movement that was essentially censored. But the conversation didn't end. It was festered and moved into the dark corners of the internet where it grew. That conversation could have been addressed, could have been handled in a way where people could actually talk about it in a rational, real way instead of just going off on this bizarreness.
There could be people pushing back.
Yes.
One of the problems with Parler, for instance, and I'm not here to rag on Parler in terms of what it is. I'm just saying one of the problems philosophically is that when all the Trump supporters leave Twitter because they banned Trump, they go to Parler where they no longer hear the arguments from the other side. And the same is true for the left. The problem is, for the longest time, Twitter has just been banning arguments from the right. So the left only hears their own refuse back at themselves. And Trump supporters leave and then start doing their own refuse back at themselves.
Not just Twitter, Facebook and YouTube also going after people who are debunking the QAnon stuff. People who are saying, hey, let's take a legitimate look. Let's look at the evidence. Let's look at the accusations. Let's actually look at this. And they were debunking QAnon stuff. Independent creators had their channels taken down because they were doing that.
YouTube did
YouTube
that.
did that.
Took down conspiracy debunkers.
Yeah, I had to go through all my old videos being like, okay, I can't even talk about this. And I removed some of them because YouTube was on a huge purge against QAnon and whether you were against it or for it. And that is something that really pushed the conversation that made people on the fringe, even more extreme. And they were coming back and saying, well, if we're not legitimate, why is YouTube blocking us? We must be against the system. We must be against against the establishment.
They say this, over target.
Exactly. We're over the target because we're getting the flack. We're getting censored. And this is why I'm against censoring speech. And this is why this is an extremely dangerous time, because a lot of people are using this situation to push for extreme censorship and the destruction of civil liberties.
They've censored the president of the United States. I mean, look, you can complain. I think his the tweets he put out where he said this is what happens when a great and glorious landslide is taken. But then he did say go home in peace, never forget this day. It was far from a perfect statement. Trump could have done way better. And so I think I can be somewhat critical. It was kind of a tepid statement. The left is, of course, freaking out about it. It wasn't an overt act of support or anything like that, but it was pretty close to it. But regardless of what you think about that, they removed him. They took down the president. That's crazy to me.
And they're probably going to take down the rest of his social media. And they're probably going to make sure that he never has a voice in this kind of larger political discourse like he previously had before. And this is a president where it's going to be set where the tech ruling elites, Mark Zuckerberg, is going to decide what you can and cannot hear. Michael Tracy had a very interesting point about this that I think is worth talking about. He said, quote, philosopher king Mark Zuckerberg should definitely get to unilaterally decide based on his subjective political judgment, which definitely is not dictated by the fleeting passions of the day, whether the public is allowed to hear from the elected president. Good system. And he makes a good point there. But
thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. So come back to check us out when we go live. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and we are also available on all podcast platforms for free if you want to listen to us there. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next time.